Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about finding x and y intercepts, either from a graph or from an equation. So to get us started, we're going to look at this graph here, okay? And this line is showing us the height of a balloon as it loses air and drops to the ground. So I can see my height is on my y-axis, time is on the x-axis. So as time goes on, I can see I have a negative slope here, so my balloon's getting closer to the ground. So the first question I'm being asked here is how high above the ground was the balloon when it started? Now, when I see when it started, that tells me I'm looking when time was equal to 0. Right? So at the beginning, my time was 0. So if I look when time was 0 and I follow up to my line, I'm looking at this point right here. And that tells me that the height was 8 feet at that time. Now, on the other hand, this is asking when the balloon hit the ground. Now, when it hit the ground, that tells me that the height, in this case, was equal to 0. So I know that the height was equal to 0 here. So if I look across the x-axis until I find that line, I see that point right here, and it tells me that the height was 0 at time 4 minutes. So what we've just kind of illustrated without really using the words is we've been talking about the x and the y intercept. So let's go ahead and take a look at our vocab here. So first, we've got the x-intercept. And the x-intercept is just the location where a graph crosses the x-axis. So x-intercept is where I cross the x-axis. So if I look on my graph here, here's my x-axis. I can tell my line crosses at this purple point. And using what we know about ordered pairs, that ordered pair is 1, 0. So the x-intercept is also the place where the value of y is 0. Now, on the other hand, the y-intercept is the location where a graph crosses the y-axis. So again, if I go to my graph, here's my y-axis, and I can see that my line crosses the y-axis here at -2. Now, the ordered pair for that point is 0, -2. So I know that y-intercept is the place where the value of x is 0. Now, why do we care about x-intercepts and y-intercepts? This really goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning here. Those x and y-intercepts are going to help us describe features when we're talking about real-world situations. So I'm going to say, help us describe important features of a graph in real-world situations. Okay, so the first thing we'll need to be able to do is to find the x and y intercept of the graph if we're given a graph. So for the x-intercept, I know that's the point where I cross the x-axis. So that's this point here. And when I write my x and y intercept, I write them as an ordered pair. So I know this point is, actually I should use purple because that's what I talked about there, is 1, 0. Now my y-intercept is where I cross the y-axis, so that's down here. Now this point, the ordered pair is 0, -2. Okay, for this problem, my x-intercept, I'm crossing, it looks again, that's going to be at the ordered pair 1, 0. Now my y-intercept this time is a positive value of y. It's +3, so that's going to give me an ordered pair of 0, 3. All right. Now the next piece of this is being able to find the x and y intercept if we give you the equation of a graph. So now we're not looking at the graph, so we have to do a little extra work to be able to find the intercept. So let's start with the x-intercept. I'm going to show my work over to the side here. We know that the x-intercept is the place where y is equal to 0. So when I have an equation, I'm going to take my equation, but instead of y, I'm going to substitute that 0. So I have 2x plus 2, again, or excuse me, that should be a 7. Instead of y, I'm substituting a 0, and I know that's equal to 28. Well, 7 times 0 is just 0. So really what I have now is 2x is equal to 28. And I know I can get x all by itself by dividing by 2 on both sides, so that x is 14. So now when I go to write the ordered pair, I know x is 14, and we said y is equal to 0, so that's my y coordinate. For the y-intercept, I know the y-intercept is the place where x is equal to 0. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy the equation, but instead of the x, I'm going to substitute that 0. So I have 2 times 0 plus 7y is equal to 28. Now in this case, 2 times 0 is just 0, so really that's gone. And my equation simplifies to 7y equals 28. And just like before, I'm going to simplify or solve, by dividing by 7 on both sides. And I get y equals 4. Again, when I write my intercept, I write it as an ordered pair. We said the y-intercept is the place where x is 0. So my x-coordinate is 0. My y-coordinate is 4. All right, we're going to skip number 4 for right now, and we're going to look at the problems on the bottom of the page. So this is the third kind of goal for today, or target. Now we need to be able to use a table to find the x or y intercept. So we have a table of values, and we're still after those x or y intercepts. Now remember, here's where it's going to be really important to keep reminding ourselves. The x-intercept is the place where y is equal to 0. So what I need to do is look in the table and find the place where y is equal to 0. And I've found that here. So I know my x-intercept is at the ordered pair -1, 0. Now for the y-intercept, I know that happens where x is equal to 0. So I do the same thing. Now I'm looking in the table to find where x is equal to 0. That happens right here. So I know my y-intercept is the ordered pair 0, 3. We'll go ahead and do this last one in the table. Again, I think it's helpful to write this down to remind yourself. The x-intercept is where y is equal to 0. So I'm going to look in the y column of my table. I find that y is 0 here, and it just so happens that the x-intercept is still the ordered pair -1, 0. My y-intercept is the place where x is equal to 0. So now I look in the table, find where x is 0, and that gives me my ordered pair of the y-intercept. In this case, it's 0, -7. So when you are back in class, we'll do practice with finding x and y intercepts from graphs, equations, and tables, just like we did in the video. Make sure you have really good notes and wrote a lot of these hints. I do think it's helpful and will help you out in the practice going forward. All right, see you back in class. Thanks.